Well, thank you. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for being here today as we join Governor Cuomo to stand up for our health care. Yeah! Before we begin, I would like to introduce some of the special guests with us today. Among them, we have our host, David Rich, from the entire Mount Sinai team. Thank you, David. Our Lieutenant Governor, Kathy Hochul, Lieutenant Governor. Congressman Adriano Espiat. Yay! And sitting next to him is Congresswoman Carolyn Maloney. Carolyn, nice seeing you. Hey, hey. We have Assembly Member Richard Gottfried. Rick, Mr. Chairman. Assembly Member Inez Dickens. Inez! Assembly Member Fernandez, welcome. Manhattan Borough President Gail Brewer, welcome. New York City Council Member Ben Callis. My partner, George Gresham, President of 1199. Yeah! Thank you. Jill Ferrello, Executive Director, New York State Nurses Association. Jill. Dr. Stephen Safier, President, CEO, Montefiore Medical Center. Maria Vullo, Superintendent, New York State Department of Financial Services. Maria. And Donna Frescatori, New York State Medicaid Director. Welcome. This afternoon, we will first hear from 1199 President George Gresham, and then we will hear from the governor, who is fighting tirelessly to protect our health care. Today, our industry is under attack on multiple fronts by the federal government that appears intent on making health care more expensive and less accessible. From its repeated attempts to dismantle the Affordable Care Act, to eliminating DSH reimbursement, that's uncompensated care payments, to rolling back the individual mandate. This federal government is advancing a targeted assault on our hospitals and healthcare in this country. If this attack continues, ladies and gentlemen, our hospitals, and I hate to say it, the jobs of dedicated healthcare professionals will be jeopardized. Fortunately, we have our governor. He's standing up for healthcare. From day one, yes, sir. From day one, the governor has prioritized New York healthcare system. He brought together all the sides, both labor and management, to completely overhaul and redesign the state's Medicaid system, reining in billions of dollars in spending and expanding access to vulnerable populations. It was an amazing feat. Nobody else in the country has done that. And that's not all. When President Obama passed the Affordable Health Care Act, Republicans in Albany tried to block the health exchange. It was Governor Cuomo who unilaterally, single-handedly, set up what is the nation's strongest health care exchange and expanded coverage to over 1 million New Yorkers. Our uninsured rate went from 10% to 5%. Amazing. I applaud the governor for his tireless efforts to not only protect health care, but also to continue to move this state forward. Together, whatever happens in Washington, we will continue to make progress for New Yorkers. Please welcome my good friend, critical partner in our fight to protect health care jobs, 1199 President George Gresham. Yeah!
Thank you, everyone. I'm honored to be here. Thank you all. Thank you all for being here today. In times like this, we don't get to come together very often to celebrate champions. I know if you're like me, you spend a lot of time watching television and being frustrated and hurt by what's happening in this nation. There are no role models out there. As a matter of fact, so often when I'm watching TV, I want to kick the TV in, to be quite honest with you. But I remind myself that I paid for that TV. And I'm going to have to pay for the next one that I kick in. And it used to be like the exception to the rule, but now it's every day. Every day I'm hearing someone taking a position that does not work well for working men and women in this country. And that's why I'm honored here to be here today with the governor, who really is a champion of health care, not only in New York, but a symbol throughout the state. Governor Cuomo is... I've had the pleasure of working with him since he became governor, and I can tell you, what you see is what you get. You get someone that does not forget where they came from. I remember myself growing up, raised by a grandmother that lived to be 96 years old, and I remember she told me so many times, no matter what you do in life, don't ever forget where you came from. Don't forget the people that you have to go above to move to where you are, because they'll be the first ones when you fall down that'll be looking down on you. Never forget. And I can tell you this honestly, if it weren't true, I just wouldn't say anything, but I certainly wouldn't come here to lie. And all of these witnesses, Governor Cuomo has never forgotten from whence he came. I don't know if you realize, sometimes people do things so well until you just take it for granted. It looks so easy because they are so skilled at it, and you've become so used to them doing the right thing until you don't realize how different they are to others. But if you look around this country and compare other governors or what's happening in other states and look at what we have in New York, a governor that stands up for working people, a governor that stands up for health care, a governor that brings us together, that celebrates our diversity rather than use it as a wedge to divide us. We realize how blessed we are here in New York, and we need to keep that blessing going. And so I was given the honor. I don't know why I always deserve this honor, but I was given the honor to introduce my favorite governor. All right, then. I love that even better. Now, when I say my favorite governor, we are in 5 states in the District of Columbia. We have 450,000 members. So we have other governors. So I just want you to be clear. I want to qualify what I'm saying, and he's still my favorite governor. And so our favorite governor, sisters and brothers, and I just joined him to be a part of, he asked me to be a part of a delegation that he took to Puerto Rico to stand up and do work for working people, because really, honestly, they've been abandoned by the country. They have not been given the respect that they should have gotten as American citizens. And our governor, went on that trip and brought a delegation, and not only did he go on a trip, but he did work on a trip. And not only did he did that, but then he became an auto mechanic and worked on a 57 Chevy and taught the man, and the car was in immaculate shape. The one disappointment, the governor tried to buy the car, but the man is not trying to, he's not trying to have that. It is a real pleasure, sisters and brothers, in times such as this, that we can look to an elected official that actually does what we elected them to do, and that is to look out for us and our families. He's truly the healthcare governor, but he's truly the people's governor. My pleasure, sisters and brothers. Let's welcome our governor, Governor Andrew Cuomo.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. 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 Well, it is a pleasure to be at Mount Sinai, and let's give this great institution a round of applause. David Rich, thank you very much for having us. It really is a special, one of New York's special jewels, so it's a pleasure to be here with all of you. George Gresham and Ken Rasky, let's give them a round of applause and everything they do. Now, you haven't seen anything until you've seen George Gresham and Ken Rasky on a rooftop in Puerto Rico being taught by a young woman how to use a grinder and almost cutting off parts of their body with that grinder. But they were there working, and they did a great job, and it says something about who they are. They were there to make a difference, and they were there to use their blood and sweat and time to protect New Yorkers. So let's give them a round of applause for their good work. We have our great... That's all right. Everybody has a point of view, especially today. Kathy Hochul, our Lieutenant Governor, who's doing a great job. Let's give her a round of applause. To my colleagues in the Assembly, to my colleagues in the Congress, thank you very much for being here. We need you now more than ever. Let's give them a round of applause. To Jill Ferrillo and the nurses, God bless you for what you do. And to the members of 1199, God bless you. I love each and every one of you. Let me start where George left off. These are challenging times. These are political times. These are ugly times. And turning on the TV is hard, and watching these talking heads go back and forth. There is, however, one show that you can watch. It is on CNN at 9 o'clock, and it is Chris Cuomo primetime. I say that even though he will not invite me on the show. I believe it is discrimination of family members. I've threatened to sue CNN. CNN says it's not them, it's Chris. I think he's afraid to let me on because he doesn't want to, he can't deal with me. He can't handle me, and he knows it. I intimidate him. But he's doing a beautiful job on that show. But George is right. These times are just ugly. And there's almost a day-to-day parade of these bizarre acts, these appalling acts, these disgusting acts. And every day it's a new series. But while all of this is going on, don't let us get distracted, because there are fundamental shifts that this administration is trying to bring to bear on this country that will have lasting changes that are far worse than any of the garbage you see day to day. They have a different worldview of America, and they are systematically trying to impose their worldview on this country. Don't kid yourself. And it's worse than what happens day to day. They are systematically sowing seeds of division. They are trying to take America's strength, which is its diversity, and make it a weakness. They're trying to say they have their own worldview, and their own view of what is the right religion and the right lifestyle. And if you don't agree with their view, then your rights are diminished. So if you're an LGBTQ member, your rights are diminished. If you're a Muslim, your rights are diminished because you're the wrong religion. If you're a woman who believes she should have the right to control her own health choices, then you are diminished, because that's not their view of reality and morality. If you are a government that doesn't fit their view, then they demonize that government and they try to destroy that government. They are trying to destroy the government of the state of New York. They passed something in their tax provision, their Tax Reform Act, called SALT, State and Local Tax Deductibility, where they eliminated for the first time in history the deductibility of state and local taxes. Why would they do that? So it actually increases state and local taxes, because they don't want local governments to be active. They don't want us providing funding for public education and for health care. So they literally are trying to destroy those states and put them in a less competitive position. This is not ideological. That gives them too much credit. An extreme conservative, theoretically, would do the opposite of what they're doing. Remember, the extreme conservatives: limited federal government, shrink that federal government, shrink the bureaucrats in Washington, look to state and local government, look to individual rights. That's what an extreme conservative preached. They're the opposite. They're the federal government, more muscled than ever before, trying to impose their will on the nation. They're trampling individual rights. They're trampling state rights. It's not ideological. It is personal and political. They come from their vantage point. They are rich and wealthy and well off. And if you are rich and wealthy and well off, you have one view of the world. You don't need public education because your kids go to private school. You don't need to fund college loans because you don't have that issue. You don't need public health insurance because you can get private health insurance. You don't need retirement benefits. You don't need pensions. You don't need unions because you're not a worker, you're an owner. And that is the view that they are imposing on this country. Now, when it comes to health care, what they want to do on health care is one of the most dramatic shifts, one of the most impactful shifts, and one of the most frightening shifts. Every forward-looking federal administration has said the same thing, that it is in the individual and collective interest to have a robust public health system. It goes back to FDR, who tried twice to reform health care in this country. Truman followed FDR trying to do the same thing. Johnson followed them and actually succeeded. Medicare, Medicaid. 53-year anniversary of Medicare, Medicaid. Thank God for Medicare and Medicaid. Bill and Hillary Clinton tried it. And then President Barack Obama stepped up, and he tried it, and he succeeded with the Affordable Care Act, despite the Republicans fighting him every step of the way. They have tried to repeal the Affordable Care Act 60 times. 60 times. Why? Because they don't see the need for it. Why should they help other people get health insurance? If you can afford it, you get health insurance. And if you can't afford it, you don't. That's their view. Now, we took the Affordable Care Act, and as George and Ken, and with the help of the people in this room, we made it a phenomenal success for the state of New York. 1 million people. 1 million people have gained health insurance under the Affordable Care Act. We put in place the best exchange in the nation, despite the Republicans fighting us every step of the way. We did it without the Republicans in the legislature. We did it unilaterally. And now 22% of the people in this state who get health insurance get it through our exchange. Is that incredible? We cut the uninsured rate from 10% down to 5%. Only 5% of New Yorkers don't have health insurance. And premiums of commercial insurers has gone down 50% today versus before the Affordable Care Act. Now, Trump is doing everything he can to dismantle it. He's trying to do it administratively. He's trying to do it with his budgets. He's trying to do it by cutting Medicaid and cutting DISH and cutting help to safety net hospitals and to teaching hospitals. If he can't do it administratively, he'll have his Supreme Court nominee, Kavanaugh, do it, who's already said he's against the Affordable Care Act. So he's coming to end it. One way or the other, don't kid yourself. If they were ever successful in ending the Affordable Care Act, it would be catastrophic for New York. Millions would have no insurance, and it would jeopardize the entire healthcare industry, as Ken said. And everything else aside, healthcare industry is 20% of this state's overall economy. That's how important it is. We must stop them, period, and we must stop them now. We are going to do it by codifying the Affordable Care Act in New York State law and New York State regulations. We have already started. We banned insurance companies from discriminating against people with pre-existing illnesses, so that's done. We required all insurance companies to cover the 10 essential benefits laid out in the Affordable Care Act. We mandated insurance companies to end all co-pays for breast cancer screenings and to increase access. And we mandated a woman's right to contraceptive care. That's in the law. Now what they are trying to do is they're trying to scare people by threatening increased premiums because of the loss of the individual mandate. Okay? What they're saying is we're going to make the individual mandate go away, which is making the insurance companies nervous. So the insurance companies are coming in for very large rate increases. If the insurance companies got very large rate increases, many people would drop insurance and the exchange would collapse. That is what they are trying to do. It is Machiavellian. It is duplicitous. You are creating anxiety for millions and millions of people across the country. It's almost diabolical. But that's what they're trying to do. The insurance companies are coming in and saying, well, the president says the individual mandate's going to go away. And if the individual mandate goes away, the pool is going to change, and therefore we need higher rates. They've come to the state of New York. The rates are regulated by the superintendent of the Department of Financial Services, who's here with us today, Maria Vullo. And they have asked for a 24% rate increase. 24%. It would increase the cost of a policy about, on average, $1,500 for a policyholder. They would be effective in collapsing the exchange if that happened. Because when people saw those large increases, they would say, well, forget it. I'm not going to take the coverage. And you would then change the consistency of the pool, and the exchange would collapse. We're not going to let that happen. Trump is trying to collapse the ACA. He's trying to wreak havoc on our health care system. That's not going to happen. It's not going to happen in the state of New York. If we allowed that rate increase to go through, it would be hundreds of millions of dollars as a bonanza to the private insurance companies. It would increase the cost to normal, hardworking families. We're not going to let it happen, so today I am directing the DFS superintendent to reject any rate increase attributed to Trump's threatened effect of the loss of the individual mandate participation. Insurance premiums must be based on actual cost and not political manipulations. We're not going to allow Trump to tear down our health care system. We've come too far. We're not going back. We now have the best health care system this state has ever had, and we're proud of it. It's a national treasure. And we're going to stand up and we are going to fight back, the way we've been fighting back against all of these shifts by the Trump administration. Just think of what they're trying to do, what they've done to the immigrants on the border, and trying to tell us who's a new American and who's not a new American, and who's worthy to come and who's not worthy to come. Who are you to say who should be a new American? We're all new Americans. They had the audacity to take children from their parents at their border and then didn't have the competence or compassion to figure out how to reunite them. We sued them for violation of due process, and I am so glad we did, and we're going to pursue that lawsuit because what they did was inhumane and anti-American. We're going to fight them on their refusal to do anything on gun violence. We have mass massacres almost on a weekly basis. These guys sold their soul to the NRA so they won't pass common sense gun control. We did in New York with the SAFE Act, and we're going to expand it even more. Sexual harassment against women is a reality. It is a fact. The Me Too movement made it graphic. Thousands of women stood up and told their story. The Washington, D.C., their silence was deafening. We passed the strongest sexual harassment law in the United States of America to show them what they should be doing. They pulled out of the Paris Accords because they don't give a good goddamn about protecting the environment, and we started our own climate change coalition because we do. And George is right. They abandoned Puerto Rico after Hurricane Maria. They treated them like second-class citizens. Puerto Rico should have gotten the same help that Texas got, that Florida got, because Americans are Americans. And there are no second-class Americans. Thank you. And look, fundamentally, my friends, we have a fundamental different view of this country and who we are as a people and a society than Trump and his cronies. We just see a different view when we look in the mirror. We have a different definition of America. We have a different definition of what it means to be a citizen of this country. In New York, we believe that when we made the promise, opportunity for all, it meant something. It meant something. It brought people from all across the globe to this country with that simple promise, opportunity for all, equality for all, discrimination of none, that we're going to work with you to succeed. Because we believe when one person succeeds, we all succeed. And when one falls, we all fall. That's what we mean by community. That we are all connected. We are all interrelated. That there is a fabric that binds us. An opportunity for all, inherent in that, said there are certain basics that society is going to work with you to provide. You should have safe, clean, decent housing to live so you can bring your life together. You should have a public education system that is so good that you can fly as high as your wings will carry you just from a public education system. And part of that promise, opportunity for all, is health care, not as a luxury, but as a basic human right. That is the New York way. That is who we are. That's what we believe. That's how we live our lives. Those are our values. That's how we treat one another. And we're not going to be reduced to their vision of America. We're not going to be reduced to their selfishness and their isolation and their division. That is not who we are. We're not going backwards. We're going to go forward. We're going to stand and we're going to rise and we're going to resist this administration. We will not be diminished. We will not be demeaned. We're going to show this administration we're going to fight back. And when we come together, there is nobody who can beat us. Because we are right and they are wrong. We're going to protect our health care system. It's the best in the nation. And we're going to treat one another with love and dignity. Because that's what we believe as a society, as a state, and as a people. Thank you and God bless you.
Please welcome Lieutenant Governor Kathy Hochul.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, you have just heard from the leader of the resistance. Let's give another round of applause to our incredible Governor, Andrew Cuomo. I want to thank you all for coming here to Mount Sinai and being part of that resistance and being part of the Army to fight back. Because as you heard from our governor, that's what we do here in the state of New York. And this issue of health care is deeply personal to me. As Carolyn Maloney knows, when I served as a member of Congress with her, so proud to represent an area of our state, and I lost that seat because I refused to repeal the Affordable Care Act the 30, 40 times it came before us, and I'd take those votes all over again and lose my seat because now it gave me the honor to stand side by side with Governor Andrew Cuomo and lead our nation forward in fighting back Donald Trump's administration. We will not do that in our state. We will not do that in our country, and it's under Governor Cuomo who's made it happen. Thank you, everyone.
Ladies and gentlemen, that concludes today's program. Thank you for attending.